This is the Nassaumen Hockey Podcast with James Nichols and John Zeller. YouTube, what's going on today, man? I always wanted to do that. I never had a YouTube channel where I could do that, but here we are. And as I'm doing this, I'm composing a tweet. And as you just bear with me a second because I can't do two things at once. But let's check us out live on YouTube following the Isles trade with the New Jersey Devils. And let's post the link to this bad boy. Let's copy and paste. And now I will hit that retweet real quick. And let's get into the action. So, the New York Islanders acquire Kyle Palmieri and Travis Zajac? That was something I didn't expect. But hey, they acquired Kyle Palmieri, who we anticipated. We anticipated this, and we said this last night. They also acquire Travis Zajac, which is something we didn't expect, but we did expect an additional depth piece. So I think that this is a great trade. Something else we said last night on the podcast was that we did not know or expect for this to happen this early. We thought that Lou, would take his time like he's known to do. He says, if you have time, you use it. So he, was expected to use that time. But nonetheless, Kyle Palmieri and Travis Zajac are now New York Islanders. Going the other way is a first-round pick, AJ Greer and Mason Yost. And in my opinion, pennies. It's pennies. You get to keep your 2 second-round picks, which I think is great. I don't know that they're done because I'll explain why. But right now, we still have our 2 second-round picks. They trade the first-round pick, which is essentially the equivalent to an early second-round pick, right? With this move, they're anticipating making the playoffs. They're anticipating going on a run, and that first-round pick is going to be late. So
in the 20s, you're hoping.
Right, exactly. It's going to be in the 20s. So I think that this is great. I think that this was a very bold move, in my opinion. A bold move. The Devils are retaining 50% salary from both contracts.
And that, I think that's they might be making another deal, or that made it so that they can get both of them.
Right. So maybe it's that they get both of them. They're both making now 2 and change. I think it's closer to 3 million for the rest of the year. But there were some updates to this, right? So we know that AJ Greer and Mason Yost go the other way as well. But there was more conditions. One being the condition on there's a 4th round pick in the
additional
deal as well. If the Islanders make the Stanley Cup Finals, that pick becomes a 3rd in 2022 or 2023. The Islanders have the option to decide which of the 3rd round picks they transfer. So, listen, this is beautiful. You get your goal scorer, you get your depth forward, you give up a 1st round pick, but you still have a plenty of more picks to go. This is great. I think this is great.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing, the conversation that's happening right now is what do the lines look like? And someone had put up, and I lost it already because it moved really quickly. I mean, there's a few things. The Islanders now have Barzal, Nelson, Peugeot, Cizikas, and Zajac for centers, right? So there's a lot of movement, like like we've seen before with Peugeot and Barzal are often out there. They have a lot of options at center now.
Yeah, they do.
And I think that's good. You can have a lot of different combinations out there late in games. I think that's really important. I think the other thing is are the other lines and where we think, because I think the instinct was who's going to go play on the first line, but I think it might move people around, and we may be surprised at what that looks like. I've seen a number of things pop up that Zajac is actually that 3rd line center. Peugeot has been excellent in the faceoff circle, if not their best during the season. So I don't really see that changing, although Zajac is very good.
Agree.
So I don't necessarily see that changing. I think I think what might be surprising, at least at first, is seeing Beauvillier back with Wahlstrom and Beauvillier because they played really well together.
Could be. I think what we're going to see, and our good buddy, an official third member of the podcast, Joe Pantorno, believes that Kyle Palmieri is going to be up on the first line with Barzal and Eberle. That gives you 3 right-handed shots on the first line. I don't know how much that matters. I guess it does matter. But regardless, I think Palmieri might shift over to the left wing. He's majority of his career been a right winger, but he could shift over to the left. Now, there's also the possibility that Josh Bailey slots up on that first line. Palmieri goes down to the second with Beauvillier and Nelson, what have you. But just because, maybe Peugeot isn't going to be the quote-unquote third-line center doesn't necessarily mean that he's not going to take the face-offs, right? He could just win a draw and then assume the left wing role from there on out, which I think is likely. I think that's pretty likely. And like you said, too, Travis Zajac is excellent in the face-off circle. So this is a win, win, win all around.
It gives him a lot of flexibility in that forward group.
Yeah.
I think if you're thinking like Trotz does, he wants to solidify that. I mean, and they may have been talking about, knowing Lou and Trotz. And like I've said before, Lou may have been thinking this all along. And I think we said that on the podcast. This didn't just happen out of thin air. I think this was something that Lou was thinking about, and that was a known need even before the Lee injury. Yeah. They were going to add 1 or 2 pieces on offense, whether that was just at one depth and they were going to get healthy scratched and occasionally get some time on that third line.
Yeah.
Or, there was going to be some solidification there. There was going to be some additions made. I think this does as good a job as they're going to do outside of making a huge move. But I think this is an important move for them.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that it gives them a lot of flexibility, but they'll want to solidify this pretty soon. And they've probably been talking about it. Lou's not making this move obviously in concert with Trotz the entire time. I honestly think that they might know exactly where they want to put guys off the hop. So it may not be. I know that kind of ruins the purpose of us doing this live and all that, but I think they may have some ideas already, and we're clearly just gonna have all we can do is speculate because they may already know. They play tomorrow. I don't know that means Palmieri and Zajac will be in the lineup tomorrow. I don't think there are travel restrictions from New Jersey to New York at this point, but I think it just whatchamacallit. If anything, they'll be later in the week. They'll wind up being in the lineup.
So here's what happens.
You're being on your phone and distracting me.
No, it's fine. I'm reading more details. So in a paper transaction, both Oliver Wahlstrom and Kiefer Bellows go to the taxi squad. Now, don't hold your breath and freak out. Oliver Wahlstrom will be back. It's likely that Kiefer Bellows is going to take a seat, which is fine. But here's the interesting thing now. Like we said earlier, 50% salary retained for both contracts. That leaves the Islanders with $3,069,167 dollars in cap space. I don't think they're done, man. I think that Lou has plenty of time now to assess, maybe some more prices. What's gonna, who's gonna sell? There's a couple more days left to figure out who's gonna sell and who's gonna go for it. There's gonna be a lot of teams trying to figure out what they want to do. I think that they're gonna maybe go for a defenseman. I think there's gonna be not a top 6, but a depth at least. No reason why a John Merrill can't be had on a $925K contract. No reason.
Yeah, I think that's I think, like we said on the podcast, I don't think if any of your top 4 defensemen go down, they're not replaceable. You're not getting a top 4 defenseman in this
right
in this trade deadline. You know what I mean? So if anything, all they can do is cross their fingers and like I said, it's a good thing Noah Dobson was the guy that went down. That it's literally that third pair is the only, you can only replace them.
Yeah.
No one else is really that replaceable. You're going to go in limping for sure. And which is a problem into whatever next game you need to go to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we got some interesting comments here in the chat. We got Bailey, Barzell, and Eberle. I'm guessing that's going to be that's Joe Murphy's suggestion for the first line. I can see that happening. Bailey is that left hand shot. He has
And he's
some pretty,
defensive.
and
You
he's
want
defensive.
they need somebody on that line, which is that was kind of Staples' point.
Yeah.
In his article earlier today or late last night, that Komarov kind of provides that stability. You don't have to guess, where he's going to go. I know Komarov said like get out of the way, but what he meant was, play his game. Don't
Right.
overcomplicate things. I think Bailey could do that. I don't know that I'd be really excited about that. Yeah, like I said, I wouldn't be so. I don't know where you put Zajac as a center. If he just can, if he's played wing before and you can just slot him in anywhere, great. I think whether Bavillier goes down to the third line again, where again they had success. That line of Bavillier, Pajot, and Wallstrom had a ton of success.
It'll be interesting to see too if you got the tandem coming in together. Are they going to stay together? Is Barry going to try and figure out a way to keep Zajac and Palmieri on the same line? They already have the chemistry.
Did they play together though, like on the same line?
I don't know if they played a ton,
like maybe
together
on the power play.
Exactly right. They might be on the same power play.
No, like in New Jersey, if they were on the same power play.
No, I know that's what I'm saying. They might have been
okay.
on the same power play and everything. I don't know. I didn't watch a ton of Devils games this year, except for when they were playing against the Islanders. But you wonder if they have that chemistry, if Lou knows that, if Barry knows that, and they keep them together on a line. Maybe you do see Travis Zajac, pop into the top six somehow and center that line. Maybe Nelson goes to the wing. I don't know. Although I don't see that happening either, because I do think that Nelson has taken a step forward in the faceoff circle this year. He's been very good on faceoff draws.
Up the middle, they've been just much better.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm more of the opinion that Zajac is probably going to center the third line. We've seen Pajot go all over the place.
Yeah, but why remove your best? Why? I know Zajac's good, but I doubt. I highly doubt they just take the Pajot's their best center. They don't just remove him and put him on the wing.
In the faceoff dot.
Andy Graziano is also tweeting. You can take faceoffs and not be the line's center.
Exactly.
Positionally.
Right.
And I think
that's my point.
Yeah, I think you don't want thinking about this team, and they're adding pieces. They don't want to disrupt. They want to keep the group together. It can't be that many changes. I don't think they're not going to blow. They're not going to blow things up in that kind of way. Yes, obviously you can play the wing positionally and take faceoffs. That's a thing. Yeah. However, the way that the team's constructed, you're plugging pieces into an existing thing. You're not about to just blow this up. I don't think that's a thing.
I don't think that's a thing either. I think you're right. I just think that the flexibility of Pajot gives Barry Trotz that option, right? Last night you saw JG Pajot on the first line playing with Eberle and Barzell on multiple shifts. It wasn't just one. Saw him out there a couple of times. So I think that Pajot's versatility and the versatility of Josh Bailey gives this team plenty of options, and they can kind of plug and play and figure it out as they go along. Now, not too many things are going to change. I'm 99% sure that Nelson's going to stay the second line center. Obviously, Barzell is going to stay the first line center. Eberle is going to be on that right wing. Now the question becomes who plays left wing one. Does Bavillier slide up? Maybe he slides down to the third line where he had good chemistry with Wallstrom and Pajot. Does Zajac find himself in the top six? The only reason why I say I'm 99% sure that Nelson is the second center is because he's also had some pretty good success on the wing. So does Zajac maybe play center and he centers the Nelson line with Bailey or Bavillier? There's a couple of things that could happen here.
Yes, like I said, I'm a big believer in that they make these types of moves in order to have flexibility. You get guys that can play multiple positions that really well, and obviously Lou knows both of these guys pretty well. I still think you stick with your chemistry and try to plug in instead of rearrange. I'm of that mindset first. first and foremost. It'll be interesting. I wonder, that the second line with Beauvillier, and it wasn't really working. So maybe you do just add a Zajac to that line and move Beauvillier to the line that was working quite well, and go from there. Maybe Nelson benefits from having a veteran like Zajac next to him. Bailey can just kind of play his game and be defensive and try to move the puck and different things, and just kind of have Zajac and Nelson be the offensive part of that. I mean, Zajac is, 2 years removed from a 19-goal season. Guy can score goals. On a not great Devils team, he has 18 points, 33 games this season. Next to Nelson, if he stops with these toe drags and actually gets the puck to the net, I know he scored last night. If he actually just gets the puck to the net instead of trying to make too many hot dog moves, I think, next to Zajac, I think that's really good. And is Zajac also a righty?
That's a good question. Let's find out, because I am not.
Yeah, he's also a right shot. So that makes sense to have Zajac, Nelson, Bailey, Beauvillier, Pajot, Wallstrom, and then have Palmieri on that top line.
Yeah.
Just go straight offense. Just have them. I wonder, just because of that Staple article, it makes me think about how maybe they put Zajac on that top line. Maybe it's not as sexy as you think. Do you get somebody that's a little more defensive in there that can be a net front presence and score some goals? And maybe it's not Palmieri. I don't know. I'm speculating. I'm trying to think of, because Trotz had a couple of good quotes in that article about why that's important and why it works and blah, blah, blah. So now I'm thinking, okay, Villiers looks good up there. If you needed just an injection of offense, obviously you do that, right? You throw a Pajot up there, you throw a Beauvillier up there. Right. I wonder what it looks like every single shift. So maybe Zajac is that person, and Palmieri it plugs in somewhere else, just because Pajot is that defensive person on that line. Nelson is really good in his defensive zone, and Bailey's really good in his in the defensive zone. So I wonder if maybe Zajac's actually that top line person and not Palmieri, unless they just go straight offense.
They might go straight offense.
That doesn't seem likely to me. But
so here's the thing too. I was talking on a couple of people on Twitter. I was talking to a couple of people on Twitter about, before this trade happened, and the possibility of Taylor Hall coming over, and if he was going to be on the first line. Anthony DeComo of the fourth period tweeted at me. That sounds all well and good, but the job of the left winger who played with Matt Barzal and Jordan Eberle, and he was referencing Anders Lee, was to dig the puck out of the corner and play the dirty game in front of the net. Who's going to do that if you have a first line of Taylor Hall, Matt Barzal, and Jordan Eberle? And I guess you could say the same thing for Kyle Palmieri, right? He's not too different of a player than Taylor Hall. Maybe he's a little more goal oriented.
There's only one puck out there, right?
Right.
You can't have every guy that likes carrying the puck.
Yeah,
and that's the problem.
My point there, though, was in a Barry Trotz system, every player on the ice is expected to get in the corner, dig the puck out, retrieve it, play hard, play dirty. So I don't know if it's so I don't know if it's so far-fetched to say that Palmieri is going to be first line left wing with Barzal and Eberle. I really don't. I don't think it's that far-fetched. Now, did it work with Leo Komarov on the first line because that was his role, right? He tried to assume the Anders Lee role. Yeah, it worked. But this might be a little bit of a different dynamic, right? We haven't seen Barry Trotz let Barzal wheel and deal and go full force offense. This might be that opportunity to do so. Maybe he trusts him enough to be able to do that without being a defensive liability. Maybe this solidified first line gives them that option, because let's face it, Palmieri is not Anders Lee. Different kind of player, completely different dynamic. So things might have to change a little bit.
Yeah, it could, and I think Anders Lee, he also scored goals, and You nailed it, and I don't think it's a surprise. I think we've all known this. You're not replacing Lee, so maybe it's just something different. Maybe they're just going
Exactly.
to do something different,
Right.
and the other, it's all been. Trotz is very strategic anyway, with where players are starting. Defensive zone starts, offensive zone starts. You're seeing there's always pretty consistent defensive pairings out there with certain lines. So yeah, it's entirely possible that they just go straight offense. I mean, Palmieri's scored at least 24 goals in the last 5 seasons. This is the first year he's had a kind of a down year. He's a 40, 50 point guy on a regular basis. You can kind of set your clock to it, even on some questionable Devils teams. And he played pretty well in Anaheim as well. Actually,
absolutely.
He played what I'm seeing here is he played a nice season here in Syracuse too. I didn't realize, but when the Ducks were the affiliate with the Syracuse Crunch before Tampa Bay. So I think you could see a couple different options. I saw Andrew Gross tweet that both players will be available for morning skate tomorrow. Coach's decision as to whether they go into the lineup.
Right. And so that was going to be my question to you. When do we see these guys slot in? And it could
Friday.
be as
Friday,
but it could be as soon as tomorrow.
It could be tomorrow, but absolutely Friday, but maybe
absolutely
tomorrow.
Friday. And that's the beauty of this trade, right? And I said this to you a while ago. The great thing about this trade going down, and we speculated if they would do it in division, is if they do it in division, yes, they might have to pay a little bit, but there's no quarantine period. And we see what's going on in Vancouver and how they're losing guys. And they might not even play the rest of the season. The Islanders don't have to risk that. And that's not going to happen because they're staying within the division. So this is huge on that front. Now, the Islanders do have back-to-back games tomorrow night. And then they play again on Friday against the Rangers. So it will be interesting to see. Tomorrow morning is gonna be very telling. We're gonna know. It's going to be reported what the line combinations might look like. So I got another Eberle, Barzell, and Bailey will be for the first line from Chris, the sports fan in chat. And then Brendan Loth says that 50% salary retention for both players. Are the Islanders not done this trade deadline? And Brandon, I got to tell you, Brandon, I don't think they are. We said this a little bit earlier. I think there's a possibility that there's a depth defenseman coming. I don't think it's going to be, we're not going to get Taylor Hall at this point. We're not going to get, Ricard Raquel, Philip Forsberg, any of those guys. It's going to be a depth defenseman. And I think that's fine. I think that they're solidified now in their top 9. I think the depth defenseman is necessary, although I do like how Thomas Hickey played in his time. I think that, there's never too many depth defensemen to go around, right? You saw Adam Pelech block a shot last night. He goes down. Everybody's holding their breath. Oh my God.
Yeah, but I think it's really difficult for them. Again, like we said earlier, I think the top 4 is almost irreplaceable. All you can do is kind of make sure you have somebody there that can fill in until they can recover, which is totally fine. And I think that's what Zajac does. I think so. Joe Murphy commented a little while ago. I'll put it up on the screen here. The team folded when Zeker got hurt last year. So yeah, Zajac absolutely is, he could be the 5th center. He can be as a backup, as late in games, getting two or 3 centers out on the ice at a time, or you have, almost 3. You can do is a lot of different combinations of that. Trotz has that available, depends on who's ready to go. So and if somebody goes down, even if Nelson misses a game in the playoffs, he gets a bump, he gets a bruise, he gets on the COVID protocol list for a false positive for a night. You can kind of plug these guys in and they don't miss a beat. You can throw Komarov in there. You know what he's going to do. Trotz can be comfortable with that. So yeah, I definitely think that that Zajac piece, I think, helps solidify the lineup in more than just what you see on paper, right? Like just the lineup. Like it looks, the lineup looks a lot better. That makes a lot of people feel better.
Yeah, this lineup is going to be deep now, a lot deeper than it was. It was already pretty deep, right? Again, we keep talking about the center core. It's so good. They add another center, which is kind of crazy to think about. And with $3 million in cap space, now I'm thinking, is it possible they get 2 players? Is it possible? I don't know.
I don't know where you put it. I mean, they have the depth. I think you're comfortable with Komarov
yes,
as your depth person.
Yes.
You're comfortable with Johnston as their depth person, and then you still have Bellows around.
Right.
And then you still, and you forget you have Kuhnhackl, who will surely be up for the playoffs in the A. Handsome Tom. He's it's depth. They're not talking about guys that are going to make the lineup on purpose. You're talking purely depth. So you don't have to make a move for that. You also have Timashov, who they didn't really love what he had in one game, but he's depth. That's super depth, right? That's black. He's on the Black A squad. That's not even Taxi squad.
Right.
So you kind of have some of that. I think your instinct with the defenseman is kind of where it needs to go. I think that's where they liked what they had with Hickey and even Aho to a certain degree. Did score a goal. It's a pretty nice goal. If you remember, he kind of sniped it. That was not an easy shot. I think in motion too. I think that was pretty nice. But I think I don't know who that is. I think you said John Merrill at under $1 million. I wonder who else is out there that's on an expiring deal. Most likely under $3 million. The flip side to all of this, and just like the economics of it all, is Ledecky and Malkin could have just been like, yeah, we don't want to afford this if we don't have to, so they have to keep 50%. They could not pick anybody up. It could literally just be a dollars and cents thing. It gives them room to do something, and now they have the time. Yeah. Right now they can really squeeze somebody else, and get a really good deal. They don't have a ton of assets left. I think that's they're not trading it first for anything. That's for sure.
Right.
The expansion draft, as much as we're going to forget about it for now, does still exist.
Yeah.
So you don't want to be, sell the farm here and not have anything to deal with, Seattle, or you're comfortable at some degree losing. You have a handshake deal with Palmieri, and he's a UFA, and maybe he comes back and Bailey goes, and then Lee comes back next season. You have Palmieri on that line, and you go from there. Speculating. Obviously, we don't know anything, so it depends on what kind of deal you want to make. With Seattle, it depends on who they can pick up. It can't just be cash. In other words, unless it's a 4th round pick for some defenseman that you can take on. But I don't know what $2 to $3 million defenseman is only worth a fourth round pick that the Islanders want, or even a 3rd round pick. I don't know what anyone worth their salt that's getting paid that much that the Islanders actually want as a depth defenseman worth a 3rd or 4th round pick. I don't know what that is.
I think what happens here now is one more move. It's going to be that depth defenseman, and they're gonna hold on to the rest of their assets. I don't know if John Merrill is going to retrieve a 2nd round pick, and I'm just spitballing here. I don't know if it's going to be John Merrill. It could be John Merrill, or someone like John Merrill, a veteran who's in on a cheaper contract. I think that's likely the next move if there is another move. But I don't think much else. Like you said, the Seattle expansion draft is looming. And I'm of the expectation that there will be a trade that entices or there's going to be a deal in place that makes Seattle take someone like an Otto Koivula and the core of this team stays together. I really firmly believe that Anthony Beauvillier, Ilya Sorokin, Adam Pelech, and Casey Zizekas, I think all 4 will be back next season. It's going to take a lot of maneuvering. And
that's kind of the problem. I wonder what it all looks like, because I'd love to somehow keep Palmieri around.
Watch Lou go out and get a Mark Stahl at 50% salary retained for a 5th rounder. Hey, listen, I'm all for that. Sign me up, right? Mark Stahl's been there. He's been through the playoffs with the New York Rangers. He was a great player for them, and I think he's still got something to prove. So I would be all for that. That's a great idea. I don't know if it's going to happen, and I don't know if it's going to happen for a 5th rounder. You might be looking at maybe a 3rd rounder, but there's also that condition in this trade that it could be a 3rd rounder going the other way if and when they make the Stanley Cup conference final. So Time will tell. It could be, they could be done. There might be one more deal looming. We'll see what happens. But again, overall, really happy with this trade. Win for the Islanders. I think it's a lopsided trade. When you think about it, that first round pick, nobody knows what the hell is going to be drafted this year. Half of the junior leagues haven't played. There hasn't been too much scouting going on overseas because of all the travel restrictions and everything going on this year. So that first round pick is really just a crapshoot. They keep the second round picks. More trades might come. We don't know, but time will tell. The clock is ticking. They still have 8, 9, 10, 11, 5 days until the trade deadline. So
yeah, something else can go, for sure. Someone else can. Sorry, I'm trying to when we bring up different things on the screen. We've not done this live before, so excuse us as we mess around. I'm trying to produce this a little bit. Yeah, I mean, I think it gives them a little bit of room. It gives them some time. They have a lot of games in a short period of time right now. There's 3 games in 4 days. Ahead of the deadline, so it kind of puts them in a So yeah, tomorrow and Sunday, and then they have a gap between Sunday and Thursday next week, which is enormous. You kind of get these guys in trial by fire for a second, but then you have 3 full days. Maybe you get an off day, and then you have 2 practice days to get these guys acclimated. End of morning skate on Thursday, and then back-to-back games against the Boston Bruins. So I think Zajac and Palmieri are going to be hungry when they get in this Islanders lineup. They know they can win. The Islanders can win without them.
That was another point I wanted to make. Travis Zajac had to waive his no movement clause, his no trade clause to come here. And that's a lifelong devil right there, man. So like we were saying last night on the pod, the Islanders are a destination. They're a destination now. And this is a sight for sore eyes, man. I tell you, it's good to see. Yeah.
So the our buddy Joe Pantorno tweeted out a Kyle Palmieri quote. When I kind of heard that the Islanders could be an option, I couldn't have been more excited. As the days wore on here, there was a little bit of anxiety in terms of waiting for that call. I got the call tonight, and it was difficult to contain the excitement. So he's going to be hungry. He knows he can score goals. I don't know that he wouldn't be, even just the prospect of playing with Barzal some of the time, 8 minutes a night, if you're moving around the lineup at first, that's got to be super exciting for a player like that. That it's been a while since they've had that kind of talent. Zajac hasn't played with that type of talent. He's been around a long time. You kind of forget how long Zajac has been on the Devils. Like you said, a lifelong Devil. He was on the team that last went to the, he was on Marty Brodeur Devils teams. That's how long he's been around. And he scored 20, 25 goals in seasons before.
Absolutely. And you know what, too? He's excited to come, similar quote from him as well to our buddy Joe. It's a bolt of energy for sure. You're excited to come into this situation and to a team that just does things the right way. They know how to win. So what a time to be an Islander fan. Never thought I'd see the day's players see us as an attractive destination. Yeah, man, get used to it because it's just the beginning. Belmont on the horizon. You got, Sorokin came over, Golashev came over. Things were looking up for the New York Islanders. We're pretty ecstatic with this trade. It sounds like the 2 players coming over are ecstatic with this trade. The consensus on Twitter seems to be that this is a lopsided deal for the Islanders. Overall, great job by Lou Lamoriello. And for those of you who say Lou was sleeping, no. Lou was lurking.
I've said this before.
Lou was lurking.
He was definitely lurking. He knew he wanted to make a deal like this before Lee got injured. I know we're live, so you're not going to be able to hear this somewhere else. You have to watch on YouTube or something. So if you're watching this on YouTube, sorry. Tomorrow, that's definitely going to be annoying. But I mentioned on the podcast yesterday, Tuesday night that went up today, whatever. The most recent podcast that's out. They were thinking about this deal anyway.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It was a surprise to us. But this was there. He was lurking on it. I think Zajac was the extra. I think Palmieri was a target all season, maybe even since last offseason. I think
Well,
Zajac
Zajac-
here is a surprise. That's the
Z-
add-in where they if Lee's in the lineup, you don't get a guy like Zajac. You
You're
get a
right.
different type of player as depth from somewhere else.
You're
You
correct.
don't need that. I think that's the difference here.
However, before the Islanders acquired Peugeot, there were plenty of rumblings going around that Zajac was a target for Lamoriello. And if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong. Zajac nixed the deal last season.
So I mentioned that
And I
to
don't
you.
know if it was.
I thought it was Palmieri.
No, I think it was. It was
but
Zajac.
it was a devil. It was a New Jersey Devil, and
Yeah.
I couldn't find anything on Palmieri. You're like half right. I think you're half right.
It might be Zajac, but it might not have been to the Islanders.
No. What I mean is, I think he was on the Islanders' radar last year, but I think you get a guy like Peugeot, and he goes away. Lee goes down, and you're like, okay, not only do I need to replace that, but now I need to bolster that third line, and I was going to do it in addition to Lee, but now I need to find a replacement-ish for Lee, or at least a high, a potential scorer or 20-goal scorer in that spot, or at least in the lineup. Forget about next to Barzal, just in the lineup. Now I need to bolster that third line. I got to do it from the outside. I clearly cannot do it from the inside. They've done a good job. They've won games since Lee's been out. They're 8-4. And they've beaten some good teams along the way.
Right.
They've, not looked great against the Penguins, but that's been a season-long issue that with or without Lee. So I don't think that's a particular. I wouldn't point to Lee goes down, Islanders can't handle Penguins. That's not a thing that's happening. The Penguins are also, they just have guys come out of the woodwork and kind of just, roll over teams. So whatever, different problem. So I think Zajac comes back onto the radar, and he's not a throw-in, but he's we need that guy. We need.
You want the first round pick? Give us Zajac too.
Right. That maybe looks like a second and those guys and a conditional fourth instead of a first.
Correct.
But they needed him, and they paid for it. I think that's definitely what it was. It's, again, additional center depth, maybe some penalty killing. He's been around. He's been to the Stanley Cup final. You get a veteran presence in there. You don't have a Johnny Boychuk in the locker room or on the bench now. Zajac's been around. Maybe he's not going to be depended on like he was in New Jersey on the Islanders. I think that's going to be good for him. Palmieri will have some really, obviously really good players to play alongside. Like I said before, they're going to be really hungry. I think they're going to be positive. They're going to be able to kind of start fresh. They've not. It's been a long time since Palmieri was traded or re-signed, in New Jersey. Zajac's never had that opportunity before.
Right.
And it's been a long time. 17-18 was a run, and then they got rolled over by Tampa. So I think they're going to come in and really do some great things.
Absolutely. I think that's about it for us, pal. Subscribe to the YouTube. Follow us on all socials at Nassaumen Hockey. Thank you so much for popping in and enjoying the live show with us. We had a great time doing it.
While we're here, if the people that are watching, if people have questions, now's the time. We will wrap it up if someone has questions. We don't get to do that. We always think about it too late. So
good catch, because afterwards I would have pressed end and we would have been, we should have did this. So does anybody have any questions, comments, concerns? Anybody want to throw anything our way before we end the show?
Yeah, I'll say this. I kind of made the comment on the show, and someone had tweeted at me. They didn't love my comment. I thought Scott Isles 24 didn't like the comment about Sorokin getting maybe both of the starts against the Rangers to give Varley some rest, just because of the way that Varlamov's played against the Rangers this season, and that Sorokin's played really well against Philadelphia. There's nothing wrong with that take. I agree with that. You kind of play the goalies against the teams that can win those games, and they've played well, and you kind of let them roll. My point was simply, we've seen Trotz take a strategic approach with the goaltending this season, and if they can give Varlamov rest, they seem to be doing that, and it's top of mind. So that's That was my point there. So we do have a question here from Brendan
Brendan.
Loud. We're gonna throw it up on the screen here.
Yeah, Brendan says, how do you see the rest of the season's schedule going for the Islanders after this trade? And I'll be perfectly honest with you, Brendan. I had high expectations to begin with. I understood that, yes, Anders Lee was a huge loss and it was going to be tough to replace, but this team is constantly play by committee, and they always do. Adding two pieces like this is huge, and that's only going to bolster their lineup. And like I said, I think there might be one more addition coming in the depth defenseman, and that will put this team. I think that puts this team at the hump. Maybe not over the hump, but at the hump. I don't think that an Eastern Conference final is a far-fetched goal. And
I'm not disappointed if they go 7 games in the second round against Capitals.
No,
and don't make it. I mean, I'm disappointed. I'm not like this season was a failure.
Right.
It's tough to get out of the second round.
I do foresee them not winning out the schedule, but they're going to win, I think, in my opinion, most of those games and take that momentum into the playoffs and go on a deep run. I think that's how the rest of the season is going to go.
The 3 games against the Capitals, like I've said, I think that's super, super important that they win the series against the Capitals. And now they can almost they can feel a lot more comfortable going to those games. Now they just beat them 1-0, and then they beat them 8-4 without Lee. So now adding these guys, you're way more comfortable going to those games. You got to go in just as hungry though. You got, and they have there's only the one more back-to-back. It looks like I'm trying to look at the schedule now without being too distracted against the Bruins. They can finish that series as well. I think that's going to be a good indication of what this series looks like. Then the next 5 or 6 games, it's going to take them time to get acclimated. I think eventually it works itself out, but you need it to start ironing out before the Islanders and Capitals play on the 22nd, 24th, and 27th.
Yeah, definitely. You need to have that chemistry start to build.
Yeah, so they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games between now and then. Those next 5 games, really, handful of games, are going to be critical. And that's why they maybe don't rush them into the lineup tomorrow. Maybe they wait until the Rangers, 2 games in 3 days, the 9th and the 11th. I wouldn't be surprised if they just give it a shot tomorrow if they get a more good morning skate in and they're comfortable. Maybe they go for it. The Flyers are kind of spiraling. Maybe it's a good team to throw them in against. I think it goes well. The rest of the season, I think I'm here with you. You want to go to the next question? Good thing we did this.
Yeah, next question. How long do you think the Bellows leash is? I feel like this regime will move on from a guy they feel isn't a fit faster than the previous. Thank you for the question, Joe. I think that the leash is shorter now. I'm sorry. Yeah, the leash is shorter now. He doesn't have as much of an opportunity to get into the lineup. Zajac is surely going to play an everyday role from here on out. And who's going to sit? I think it will be Bellows and Leo. So insert
for sure. They're unless Zajac and Palmieri aren't in the lineup for some reason. That's the only reason why we see either of them. The rest,
right, exactly.
The rest of the year, unless something happens to another player or one of those guys for some reason. That might be the last time maybe that's the last time we see Komarov in on their jersey the other night, and he's been a soldier for this team.
Absolutely.
Bellows, I see as a chip. If it's not like take a Koivula and a second round pick, if Seattle might start with Bellows in a second for expansion. So I think he's played all right. I'd be upset that they weren't giving him a longer leash as far as in the organization. I think in the NHL, yes, his time in the NHL this season is pretty much over. But I think, and they may send him down to the AHL at this point to just get some ice time. They don't want him to get his growth stunted. They want it. They need, and Bridgeport got smoked today.
They get smoked a lot.
Yeah, 7-2. And I mean, they're playing the same couple teams over and over, so that's definitely going to happen. But it's not. They don't have this pipeline. No first round pick this year again. Again, it was a toss up. That's fine. I get it. I get why you did it. Go on a run. They're a good team. They're in contention, and now they're in better contention. So I think with Bellows, maybe he's a trade chip in the offseason. I'm not entirely sure what they're thinking.
And that was going to be my point. I think that the Islanders didn't want to lose him for nothing, and I think he'll be a part of an important deal moving forward. Maybe enticing Seattle not to take one of the core pieces, or maybe getting a draft pick back in the first or second round, who they're high on, and kind of reestablish that prospect pool, because with the addition of Palmieri and Zajac, it's not guaranteed that they come back to the Islanders, but there's a possibility that they maybe sign a short-term deal to go on another run for the following year. Only one, right? But that would be Bellows' spot, right? Because Lee's going to come back next season, and now you have that third line left wing spot open for one more guy, and in my opinion, it will be Kyle Palmieri. So.
Yeah, and I think with Bellows, it's not an issue if he stays in the AHL, and continues the season. And I don't. And I think that
he can. I think he's young enough to still do that.
Yeah, and I think if they can hold on to him and they can get a Koivu,
I don't think they're giving up on him
to go to right. I think that's the thing. I don't think they've given up on him. He's obviously skilled, right? They've kept him around. They've given him a shot. They believe in him. He's had his experience this season. Wallstrom just took much quicker steps. They were both looking very similar early this season.
They were.
Wallstrom, it's easy to forget after the guy scored 5 to 7 goals now. Wallstrom didn't look good at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, he figured it out.
But he figured it out
much quicker.
Much quicker. Some players takes a little bit longer. Now he's got the experience, he's got the appetite, and he'll be hungry going into camp next year. He'll make some noise. He'll play well in Bridgeport. If anything, he makes himself available to another team. Makes himself an interesting player for another team, and the Islanders can trade him for get a pick back or something.
Yeah,
down the line, and he gets a shot somewhere else. It could be anywhere. A team like Florida, a team. Who knows where he can go with a team that just needs some offense and a player like that, or have a little bit more time. Or room to have him in and out of the lineup as a healthy scratch. The Islanders right now, especially this season, just don't have that.
Right, absolutely. Last comment of the day coming from Andre. Great deal for the Islanders. Love the move, although Hall as a pure left winger would have been a better fit instead of all these right-handed shots and reconfiguration of lines. Isles do have great depth, though. Agree that they do have great depth. I don't know if Taylor Hall was the better fit. There's just no way of knowing. However, the way that the deal worked out, in my opinion, this was the better deal. Buffalo was seeking that first round pick for Taylor Hall. The Islanders get two important pieces that they needed, an additional depth player and the goal scorer that they were looking for the same first round pick. So you get your two players versus your one. I think that if these two deals were on the table and they were both, and Lou had the opportunity to say, I'm going to trade the first round pick for Hall, or I'm going to trade the first for Zajac and Palmieri, I think you pull the trigger on Palmieri and Zajac every single time. Great job tonight, guys. Fun to hop on and listen. Thanks so much, Joe. Really appreciate that. I think that
we'll do this more often. We've been thinking about making sure we do this, and now
happy with the turnout.
We kind of figure it out, and now we know we can just do it on YouTube instead of screwing around. The internet is difficult.
The internet is difficult, but I will say this: we've been informed that Twitter is working on new ways of doing their live formatting. So once that rolls out, and hopefully it works out better, we could do it easier on Twitter. You guys could just pop in, hopefully right on that platform. But for now, we will utilize YouTube. We enjoyed our time here. We thank you guys for coming. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. We do post plenty of content on there. Subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen to your podcast. We're on all platforms: Apple, Google, Amazon, even iHeartRadio. We're on everything. Subscribe to us there. Thank you to the Hockey Podcast Network for hosting us, as well as the Hockey Writers, and to you, our listeners. And until next time, everybody, let's go Islanders.